Hey guys, I'm Liz. This is my Mpowerd Luci. This is the Pro Series outdoor model. Here's all the different tests and experiments that I did with this lantern. You can find everything on the screen here. And let's get straight into the first test right now. Not exactly a test, but this is the unboxing that I know some of you guys like. Now, I've got a bunch of lanterns and lights from Mpowerd, but for this review, we're going to focus only on the Outdoor Pro model, which is this one right here. I hope you liked that little unboxing process there, and now here's what you get in the box, which is just the Pro Lantern and a charging cable right here. To use it, we first gotta inflate it, and here's how to do that. At the bottom of the lantern, there's this valve right here. Pull the cap off the valve, pinch the valve, and while pinching it, pull it away from the base as much as you can. This will get the lantern somewhat inflated. Here's a close-up of the valve. At the bottom it says squeeze here if you can see the words, and here's exactly where you need to squeeze it to work the valve. Next, just take one deep breath, blow into the nozzle of the valve until it's fully inflated and you can't blow any more air in. Usually for me, one deep breath is all I need. After that, cover up the valve with the cap. Then you have the valve that's sticking out of the lantern, so just push it in until it's flush with the surface of the lantern. And now you're all set to start using this. There are only two buttons to this lantern. They're both at the top here. One of them is the power button on the right, and the other one is the battery level indicator on the left. What I didn't like about these buttons is that they're flushed with the surface of the lantern, which makes them difficult to find in the dark. I'm going to turn off the lights in the tent now. I'm going to close my eyes and twist the lantern around a few times in the dark. Now I'm going to look for the buttons with my eyes closed. It takes me almost 10 seconds, well 8 seconds to be exact, just to look for the button to turn the light on. And I'm not even sleepy and I'm not even wearing gloves. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're groggy, it's going to take so long just to look for the power button. Now that we've got the light on, what light modes are there in this lantern? This is a pretty simple lantern with just 4 light modes. When the lantern is off, just hit the power button once and that'll give you the low brightness mode. Hit the button again for the medium brightness, hit the button again for the high brightness, and then hit the button again for the flashing emergency mode. After that, hitting the button again will turn the lantern off. Yeah, so it's a very simple to use lantern with cycling through these 4 main modes: low, medium, high, and the flashing mode. This lantern doesn't have memory settings, so you just gotta cycle through these modes every single time to get to the mode you want. And if you want to check out how the Luci looks like, here's a quick montage to check out. Here's one tip though: if you're in any of the modes, let's say a low brightness mode, you don't want to cycle through the other modes because the high brightness will blind your partner who's sleeping. Then just press and hold the power button for 2 seconds. It'll automatically go from low mode to off directly, which is a nice small feature to have. Now here's going to be our first real test with this lantern, and I'm going to use this lux meter to test exactly how many lumens this lantern is giving out. So far, the only info I could find on this lantern is that it gives out about 150 lumens on its max brightness. Is this accurate though? Let's find out. Let me just set everything up first and put the Luci Pro on the lowest brightness for now. I'm going to turn on the lux meter and keep an eye on the meter screen or the meter face when we do this test, okay? Let me line everything up and okay. First reading, minimum brightness, we've got a reading of 0 lumens. Now, for the medium brightness, I've got a reading of 17 lumens. Watch the screen, it'll drop immediately after I turn it around to show you the reading. And for the highest brightness, I've got a reading of 34 lumens. Again, watch the screen, and there you go. The flashing mode is impossible to read on the lux meter, but I'm pretty sure it's flashing on the highest mode. Phew! Now that's all done. Exactly how accurate are the official specs? Here's a little table of info for you. I know you guys love these, and I guess you can say that they're not accurate at all. Want to know why the actual number of lumens on this lantern is so dang low? That's because the light quality on this lantern isn't the best, and I'm going to talk about that next. Now, if you compare this Luci Pro with another lantern like the BioLite Luci and the Black Diamond Apollo, all 3 lanterns are on. What do you notice? All 3 of these lanterns have a cool white light, but the Luci Pro is the light that is the most glaring and the harshest on the eyes. Why? because it doesn't have a frosted globe like the other two. And without that frosted globe, which acts as a light diffuser, the light isn't diffused outwards enough, giving you very low lumen counts the further away you get from the light. Notice that the Luci Pro has this very obvious shine distance around the entire lantern that shows how badly the light is being diffused. Now look at these two other lanterns. They light up the entire area around them much more evenly, and there isn't a dreadful circle around them. And that's not the only con to this lantern. Because of the lack of a diffuser at the wall, the lights get extremely glaring when you're staring straight into the 10 LED lights at the top of the lantern here. It's really bad up close. In fact, I'm going to test the number of lumens again, this time with the LEDs facing the lux meter directly. Again, remember to watch the lux meter because the readings will drop quick. Lowest brightness, I've got a reading of 382 lumens. Medium brightness, max reading I saw was 1540, and highest brightness, max reading I saw was about 2500, which is insane. And here's another quick table of info for you guys to check out. The last column here shows you how harsh the light is on your eyes, and this column here with the original lumen count shows that this lantern is terrible at light diffusion. My partner absolutely hates this lantern because of the light quality, so even though I've had this for a few years now, I hardly ever use it. And here's yet another test to show you exactly how terrible the light diffusion is. I'm going to find out the exact distance that this lantern can throw its light, and that's basically the shine distance. This is the max brightness of the Luci Pro here. Now, here's the Luci Pro up close, and that's the lux meter again. I'm going to back away slowly from the lantern and find out exactly where the lux meter reports a 0 lumen reading. That means that no more light can be detected, and here's the spot with that 0 lumen reading. Here's the distance from myself to the lantern, which is ridiculously short, and came in at about 2.5 of my footsteps. That's barely 2.2 feet, which is less than 1 meter. On the other hand, remember the two other rechargeable lanterns that I showed you in the previous test? Here's how their shine distance compares with the Luci Pro. They're definitely much more impressive, and of the 12 rechargeable lanterns I've tested over the past few months, the Luci Pro has the worst shine distance and light diffusion of them all. When it comes to using this lantern in a tent, it's actually pretty decent if you want to do fun stuff like play cards or read a book. Here's what the max brightness looks like. Here's me reading a book at the edge of this 6-person Coleman tent, and here's a look at what I'm seeing with this lantern. That's because with the lantern hanging at the top of the tent, the LED bulbs are directly facing you and blinding you with that 2500 plus lumen output. Now, here's what the lowest brightness looks like. It's definitely a little bit too dark to be reading, but at the same time, it's not dim enough to chill in because the light quality is, well, not the best. And if you're wondering, here's the medium brightness and also the strobe setting from the inside of the tent. From outside the tent, if you're interested in that, here's what everything looks like. This is the dimmest brightness setting. This is the medium brightness. This is the brightest setting. And here's also the strobe mode in case of emergencies. Now, if you're wondering how long each of these modes can last for, here's a little testing that I did. Here's what the official specs say about the max and minimum runtimes, which come in at about 50 hours on low brightness and 5 hours on high brightness. Are these specs accurate? Well, here are my testing results when I ran both these modes on a full charge of the Luci Pro. So, as you can see, the official specs are not only accurate, but even slightly understated, and you actually get a little bit more than what you'd expect. And did I mention that I've had this Luci Pro for about 4 years now? I hardly ever use it because I don't like the light color, but I think the quality is solid and the battery life is still going strong. In case you're wondering what the other runtimes for this lantern are, here's everything you need to know. Now, how long does this Luci Pro take to charge? There are two ways to charge this lantern, and the fastest way to charge it is via USB. You know that this lantern is completely flat when you try to press either of the two buttons, and it does nothing. No battery indicator lights, no lumen output. At this point, just grab the provided cable. Both ends of the cable are exactly the same, so just take one end. Then pull open the flap covering the USB port of the lantern and then plug the cable in there. I think mine's the older model of the Luci Pro, which is one port. But there's a newer model with two ports, with not just the USB, but with an extra USB-C for more charging flexibility. Oh, and the other end of the cable goes into any USB port you have at home. This is what it should look like when it's charging, just a blinking row of lights like this. and it'll be like this all the way until it's fully charged. Here's what it'll look like when it's fully charged. It stops blinking and you can see all 4 indicator lights like this. For the full charge, it usually takes me about 2 hours, 45 minutes to 3 hours to charge. It sometimes varies a little bit, I'm not really sure why, but this is the rough timing to expect. The second way to charge this lantern is via solar UV light, because there's a small solar panel at the top, so basically you just gotta leave this out in the sun. Charging via solar isn't as good as USB for a few reasons though. First, you can't tell whether it's charging or not because the blinking row of lights don't show up the same way, and you gotta press the battery level button to check on the battery level instead. Second, it also takes a lot longer to charge via solar. On an average day, so not too sunny but not too cloudy at the same time, after a full day of charging in the sun, I'll get only anywhere between 15 to 20% of charge. In terms of runtime, that's about 45 minutes to 1 hour of runtime on the highest brightness, or about 7.5 hours to 10 hours on the lowest brightness. For the full charge though, you need to put the Luci under the sun for at least 5 to 6 days. Definitely more if it's super cloudy and rainy. Third, sometimes the solar panel acts a little bit wonky and I've had days where it doesn't charge at all. Not a single bit of charge even after the entire day in the sun. Obviously not ideal, and I found that the USB charging is way more reliable. Now, this lantern can also charge your mobile phone by using the exact same USB port at the top here. Just plug in your phone cable like this. Mine's an iPhone 12 Lightning cable, and here's what the mobile charging process looks like. I'm starting with a completely charged lantern, and my phone is starting to charge at 17%. I noticed that the battery light goes down from 4 to 3 lights immediately after I start charging, which is not great. It goes down by another 1 light, 21 minutes in. Another light goes off 46 minutes in. 1 hour, 10 minutes in, and the last battery light gets really dim. 1 hour, 20 minutes in, the lantern goes flat, and my phone stops charging at about 66%. So altogether, I've got a 17 to 66% charge on my iPhone 12. That's a total charge of about 49%, which took about 1 hour and 20 minutes. Is this a good enough charge? Well, the lantern has a capacity of about 2,000 milliampere hour, while my iPhone has a capacity of 2,815, so it was a little bit less than I expected. I would have thought I'd get at least a 60% charge on my phone, but oh well. The next test I want to talk about is how accurate the battery level indicator lights are at the top of the lantern here. All you gotta do is press on the battery button and the lights will show up for 4 seconds and for 4 seconds only. There are 4 of them, and here's what to expect when you have different numbers of lights. I found this info on the Luci Pro user guide, so you can find it there too. I'm going to put all the info on the user guide into my table here into this official specs column. I think it's a little bit weird that there's a huge jump from 4 lights, or 100%, to 3 lights with 60%, but oh well, let's just see how accurate it is. Now, here's what I found in my testing when it came to these 3 different tests. First, we have the minimum brightness, which is the low brightness setting test. Then we have the high brightness test, and finally we have the mobile charging test that you just saw. Overall, if you take a look at all my testing numbers here, I would say that the battery lights aren't all that accurate. Sadly, they fluctuate quite a bit from test to test, so it's hard to tell how much light you would have in this lantern at any given time. Now, what is the warranty length when it comes to this lantern? Sadly, it's really quite short, coming in at just 1 year for all Mpowerd products, including this Luci Pro. This Luci Pro has 2 straps. The first one is at the top of the lantern over the solar panel. It comes like this and sits pretty tight across the lantern. But you can adjust this strap by undoing it. You'll notice 2 separate connections here. Just pick the one that will give you the longer strap. That's this connection to the left here, and voila, you have a much better strap that you can carry around. This strap also makes it easy to secure this to the top of a tent. It's a little too big to fit into the circle lantern loops, so I just hooked it to the loop that holds the circle loop, and it sits fine. There's another strap at the bottom of the lantern. This one sits pretty tight to the base of the lantern and cannot be adjusted, but at least it gives you an extra place to hang your lantern from if you want to hang it upside down. The IP rating of this Luci Pro comes in at IP67. The number 6 shows the dust protection on a scale of 0 to 6, so this is the best, and it means that it's completely dust tight or dust free. And the number 7 here shows waterproofing on a scale of 0 to 9. So this is pretty good, not the best, but it's good enough to be completely submerged in water up to 1 meter for about 30 minutes. I first tested the Luci Pro in about 30 minutes of heavy rain. I had it drenched from almost all angles, and after this heavy rain test, it was still working great. I also pulled open the port and found that no water got in at all, which is great. I also tested the Luci out by dunking it in water for a full 30 minutes completely submerged like this. For this test, I had it tight to a pole because otherwise it'll just float to the top, and trust me, it's pretty difficult to get this to stay down because it's very buoyant. 30 minutes later when I pulled it out, I'm happy to see that it's still lighted up and working great. The indicator light still works really well, all the different light functions work really well too, and when I pulled the USB port open, I found that it really sealed off the water very well, and there was not a single drop of water inside. Overall, very nicely waterproofed. For the drop testing, I typically drop all my lanterns and basically all my stuff from hand height. This Luci Pro is a very lightweight lantern, and the air inside the lantern helps cushion it from shock. I was also able to drop it down a small slope. You can also probably drop it down a hill, and it'll still be fine because it has a lot of cushioning. Notice how it's still lighted up and doesn't have a single scratch on it at all. Now, to deflate this lantern, here's what you gotta do. First, you gotta pull out the valve if you tucked it in the first place. Then you gotta remove the cap from the valve and then pinch the valve where I showed you to pinch before, and then just use a little bit of force to push on the lantern to collapse it towards the base. Then close the valve and you've got yourself a nice compact lantern. For portability, this lantern weighs about 6.1 ounces or 172 grams if you need that conversion. Without deflating it yet, the size of this lantern comes in at about 5.1 inches by 5.1 inches at the top of the lantern, and the length of it comes in at about 4.4 inches. That's about 13 by 13 by 11 centimeters. If you deflate it, though, like how I showed you, then the length comes in at slightly more than 1.25 inch, but less than 1.5 inches, and this is about 3.3 centimeters, which is incredibly small. For pros, I think one of the biggest ones is that it's very easy to inflate. You don't have to use that much breath at all. Just squeeze on the valve and keep pulling on it till it almost fully inflates. After that, you need at most 5 seconds of breath, so not even a full breath to get it fully inflated. I thought that deflation was equally easy. Just take the valve out again, squeeze the valve, and simply press all the air out while tucking all of the plastic into the lantern to compact it down as much as possible. I'll try to leave a real-time clip on the screen here of me doing just that. And of course, this makes the Luci Pro super compact and very portable, which is the biggest reason why I think you guys might be considering this. I also love the 2 different ways of charging out this lantern via USB and also by solar charging. I think that the solar charging is fantastic in a pinch if you're in the backcountry because you're gonna have at least a few hours of sunlight every day that you can use to charge this up. The lantern is also shockingly durable for how little and how tiny it is. I could completely immerse it in water and it still works fine. I could drop it anywhere, everywhere, and it still works fine. I also noticed that I could stand up on it, and here's me balancing my entire weight of 120 pounds on it. It turns into this cute little bubble, but it never actually pops. It's supposed to be able to take up to 150 pounds of pressure, which is seriously quite amazing. The only thing I worry about is short pressure that can pop the lantern, and it wouldn't be able to inflate anymore. I think the overall build of this lantern is good too. It's pretty high quality. I've had this for 4 years now, so even after 4 years of shelf life, the battery life doesn't seem to have depleted too much. It's also supposed to lose only about 3% of battery life each month from where it's fully charged. There's once I left this in my gear stash for 2 whole years. That's how little I used it, and when I took it out, there was still a charge left in it, so I believe whatever they say here. As for cons, one small con is that I don't quite like using my breath to inflate this lantern because you can clearly see the water droplets from your breath forming on the edges of this lantern, and after a while the lantern will start looking a little bit dirty inside. And the biggest con, and the reason I do not like this lantern, is because the color is a very cool white, and coupled with the lack of a frosted globe and the non-existent light diffusion, I thought the light quality wasn't great. The light diffusion is bad when it's near to the ground with hardly any shine distance, and when it's hanging above you in a tent, the LEDs are staring straight at you, all 2000 lumens of output right there, making them unnecessarily harsh and bright. Definitely not my favorite lantern to use in a tent or when I go camping. That's why I've had this for 4 years now and it's barely even touched. While I wouldn't recommend this particular lantern, this one does come in a warm white instead of this cool white, with a matte finish instead of this clear finish, so I'd go for that instead. This is roughly what it'll look like if you buy that instead, and isn't the light quality a lot better? To find out how this Luci Pro compares to this other much nicer lantern, check out this video on the screen here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in that one.